Okay, as I note here, you can publish directly from Visual Studio without even going to the portal, right? It's possible, I've done it. You almost always have at least one or two little hiccups, but they're not too hard to solve, usually. But I found, working with a lot of students, that there always seems to be little things that come up. It's kind of a tricky process to get right. So after struggling with a lot, it's actually better than it used to be too. But in the past, struggling with students and helping them get their apps published to Azure, I eventually came up with like a 4-step recipe. It's extra work, right? But it never fails. And I kind of like the never fails aspect of anything, right? So I have a little PowerPoint here that we're just going to quickly go through. How to publish your database-driven web app to Azure, right? First of all, what is Azure? It's that big thing in the sky. No, it's not the Goodyear blimp. It's much bigger than that, right? It's Microsoft's cloud service. There's everything here from virtual machines to Hadoop clusters. You can create, you name it. There's nothing you can't do that I know of just about on the planet. And every week they're coming out with new and better features in Azure. So it's the main reason Microsoft is a profitable company these days, to be honest with you. A student asked me earlier this morning, is it cheaper than other web hosting solutions? No. Okay. Is it super expensive? No. If you just have basic web apps, in fact, even if you just signed up, now of course you have free level with your Imagine accounts, right? The DreamSpark, Imagine, whatever you want to call it, your cool account. But even if you just sign up for their 330-day account, even after the 30 days, I think you can get up to 10 websites that you can keep on going, and you don't even have to pay for, right? Databases you have to pay for, but just a website you don't. Okay. Anyway, there's quite a bit you can do for a very reasonable amount of money, but I'm not trying to sell you on Azure, but it's a fact of the world, right? More and more companies are using Azure, so it's great that we have free access to it and can get some familiarity, but if you ever want to, like if you're at some point in time you have some time to spend, you want to sign up for their free account that opens up everything to you to try all the different virtual machines, et cetera, then you might want to play around with other things that aren't available under your free account. But what we have right now, we have websites, web applications. You get one SQL Server database, I believe. You're limited to that, which is why, again, I talked about putting all your tables into one database. You can have as many MySQL databases, I think, as you want. Those are totally free, but the SQL Server one is a little bit more pricey. Anyway, multiple ways, right? You can actually publish right from a code repository if you're using something like GitHub. You can actually go in, create the app first, get a published profile from Azure and download it and use that in your Visual Studio, or right from within Visual Studio. As I said, I've done it many times without issue, but things often seem to come up, usually related to migrating the database, right, or getting the database in place. So that's why I came up with a different recipe. So step one, go right to the portal itself, log in and create the database, create the server and an empty database, right? Basically that's what we have to do. So just a caution there, be careful where you create your database. I accidentally once created a database without realizing in Vietnam, a SQL Server there, and then I hosted the web application in Eastern US, and it worked. It worked very well. I was shocked, right? Mind you, when I realized what was going on and I moved the database from Vietnam to Eastern US data center, it worked even better. Okay, so just be a little bit careful about where you do create things, because it's a worldwide solution, you might say, right? Resource group, that's a name you should become familiar with. Basically, the idea is you're going to create a whole bunch of resources, so grouping them together just allows you to easily move them from one, say, subscription to another later on. Like if you might start off with a free one and later on you have a pay-as-you-go or things like that, you can just move it from one to another, the entire group of resources at once. Also, as I'm doing constantly these days, I create a bunch of things and I just go and delete them. So I don't have to delete them individually. I can say everything in this resource group, poof, blow it away, right? All right. Whenever you make a database, just the one thing, most things you can easily recover, but the username and password you do for the administrator account in the database, actually you can have it regenerate it for you as long as you have your login to the portal. But it's something that you probably want to make note of and remember, right? Okay, so that's what we're going to do. I'm going to stop the PowerPoint. We're going to go to portal.azure. I'm assuming everyone has their Azure account up and working. Anyone not able to get theirs? Oh, site. Oh. Okay, so I have to sign in here. Pardon me while I just pause the video. So I've signed in, East Development Agri College, no, yes. Okay, so when you come into the portal, now you have to be I have to be careful because I have multiple subscriptions in here. You probably just have the one subscription. Subscription is basically a bill, right? So you have your free account. I have a, as well, I have switch directory, okay? Okay, Azure for Students is what you want to use. So I also have a Visual Studio Enterprise, right? That's a high-priced one that the college bought me. Well, we get it fairly cheap from Microsoft because we're a big client, but it does cost about $500 a year for that one. Okay, so Azure for Students, that's good enough for what I'm going to do today. So I just want to make sure I'm on that. These are things I deleted earlier, so I could just remove from dashboard just to clean it up a little bit. All right, so if you ever need to see all your resources, you can click this link over here, but be careful of what subscription you're seeing, right? So here's Azure for Students, so I have nothing there right now. I have no resources created. So I can create a resource, right? So I'm going to make a SQL Server database. If it's grayed out, click on the link anyway. It does work, right, under your free account. So a database name, now of course, actually I have to have a server, but that will come in a moment, okay? So I can give it whatever name. It has to be somewhat unique. So I'm going to go Medical Office 2018 and see it checked off. Okay, that's unique enough that I can use that name, right? The subscription, okay, that's who gets billed for this. Well, that's my Azure for Students. Resource group, so here, right, I can create a new one, or if I have an existing one, I could add this as a resource to that one. But in this case, I want to create a new, and I'm going to call it delete this later. That's probably not a good name in normal use, but you know, it's just a name. So if you're working on a given project, you might use that overall project name or something like that. But often I'll put like RG at the end, right? Because it's a resource group. Just so when you see things listed on the screen, all your resources at once, it's easy to pick them out by that, right? Delete this later resource group. Okay. Now I want to start off with a blank database. Server. Yes, I'm going to have an actual SQL Server to host my database, won't I? So I click the little arrow, right? I don't have any servers right now, so I'm creating a new server. I can click that, but it just gives me this new blade. Oh, by the way, that's a new term to use. Yes, Gillette is back, and he's reborn in Azure, right? Each one of these is called a blade, so you can click the X's and go back blades and over, right? It's just the terminology they use for the portal. Okay, server name. Again, this is going to be out on the internet, so it has to be unique. So I'm going to try that MO 2018. It's a different object. So it's checked. Yep. So I can use that as my SQL Server database name. Server name, I should say. Now I have to make an admin login. So I'm going to go with something very bland and generic, SQL admin. And I need a password, right? Must be at least 8 characters. So this, we can't turn off the meanness here. It's got to be certain qualifications. So I'm going to make up something that should work. I must contain, okay, so let me write this down so I can remember it. So in Notepad, let me work out something. The number 1, the exclamation symbol, I was here. How's that? Okay. Oop. number 1, the exclamation symbol I was here. So remember that password, right? Okay, it passed, right? I have to confirm it. Now, location. Well, we can go, say, with Canada Central or Canada East. I'm not going to worry about advanced threat protection. I'll just say select. Okay, so that's going to be my database. Pricing tier. I don't know if you get that option. Yeah, you would. You'd have these same options. So obviously the less money per month is, you don't need much here, so I'll go with a basic. I can even turn down the number of DTUs and so on. There's a way to get into more options, but that's good enough for now. I'll just take that. A basic pricing tier level. That's just your correlation. You might have briefly talked about that when you did database course. That's just whether, alphabetically, right? You need different correlations if you're working with different languages, so alphabetical order and so on. This is kind of the standard for English. Is this Latin, general? Away you go. So it takes a little bit to create the actual server, right? So, I need YouTube. Just move that over here.
Hear that sound? That's the sound of savings.
Malto-meal. Taste the quality. Hear the...
Hello? Okay. So while it's working, okay, we can listen to Jeopardy. Pause Jeopardy there. Okay, so we're done. And that's good. So deployment succeeded. I can even pin that to the dashboard, right? And then now we see it here. There's my database. By the way, just while we're here, I'll point out this. Set server firewall. That's pretty critical if I want to actually, I don't have to do this just for publishing to it, because when I publish my app, it will be working right there locally with it. But it's a useful thing because I have a SQL Server now, right? I can connect just from Management Studio here in my own PC. But I have to actually open up the firewall in order to connect from SQL Server Management Studio here in the college. So I just click that, firewall settings, and it's kind of important to be aware the college to the outside world has one IP address, no matter what lab you're in, right? So I just have to enter the one IP address, and it doesn't matter where I'm at the college, the firewall will be open to me, right? But when you get home, you just have to come in here and maybe put in your home IP address as well, and then you can connect to your database from there at the same time. So you see rule name, I'll call this one college, and it shows me my current client IP address right here. I can put that in as the start and the end. Okay, ranges are more useful in other places, but not here. I just have one, and I just click save. Okay, so updating the server firewall rules, so now I can connect directly to my server from here. I'll close this blade, right? So by the way, this is the actual address then of my SQL Server. I can copy this, go into SQL Server Management. Oh, it's right here, SQL Server Management Studio. Okay, it opened on the other screen. Just I can't bring it over with the dialog box open, so got to close it for a second. And then if I click connect, then I get the dialog box back. So I just put that URL in here. Then I have to change the SQL Server authentication, SQL admin, and that super secret password that I didn't let anyone see. Everyone watching this video will obviously won't use that one again. Connect, and there we go. I'm in the SQL Server in the cloud, right? I don't have any databases yet, but I could create a database, right? Well, oh, sorry, I have my MO, yeah, this one that I created initially, but there's no tables in it yet, right? But I could just start working in it just like I normally would, do my own create table statements, grab any of my scripts, right, that I wanted to from, you know, our coursework, our Ironwood or We Adventure. I just run those create scripts in here. Now, just leave out the create database part because I don't want to make the database, but all the tables and stored procedures and everything else, right? It's kind of, we're going to look at using this for even the first database course because students can work here and they can work from home in their SQL Server database as well. Okay, just wanted to point that out to you that just by opening the firewall I can directly connect. But something else I can do here, here's my connection string. So if I copy that, let me actually start a new notepad page. Oh, I better, wait a second. Now I'm going to use this because I don't want to lose that, right? Okay. Oh. Here's the database connection string. So I'll just copy that and then go back into Notepad. Okay. Yuck. Let's get word wrap on here. Okay, so here's the connection string itself. Server equals, so this is how it's now of course it's not, doesn't have the username or password in here. I have to actually type that in. That gets into the whole idea of user secrets where you can store this kind of private information in an encrypted way inside and so on. But for now I'm not worried. I've already shown you the password, right? The username is SQL admin. And my password, don't leave the curly braces there, is this one here. So put that in for the password. Okay, so now I have a complete connection string to connect to my database. What am I going to do with it? Well, let's come back to our PowerPoint. Right, so we've got our database. Okay, we open up the firewall rules to access here from the college. Okay, copy the connection string and save it with the username and password. Done. Okay, step 2 now, right? We're going to go into and we're going to connect from that database from our Visual Studio project. Yeah, right? We'll use it as the database when we run locally. Okay? So we'll just go to appsettings.json file, comment out the current ones, and just use the new ones instead. Right? And then we can just switch whether we want to work with Azure or locally just by changing which ones are commented out from now on. And we could manually run update database, or actually, because of how we've got our code set up, we can just execute the program. And it will execute our migrations connected to the database in the cloud, right? Let's do that. So I've copied this connection string. Let's go to our Visual Studio. Just clean things up a little, get them off the screen. Okay. So we know that the connection strings are stored here in app settings, right? So actually maybe what I'll first of all do, so here connection strings. So I got the copy that I can go back to. I can just switch which ones are commented out if I want to work with the local database. So this I'm just going to replace with the one I've saved here. Right, just take everything out of the quotes, paste in that one, do the same thing over here. Remember, I use the same connection for both DB contexts, and that's it. Now, one other thing I want to do here, in startup, for some reason, I don't know why I did this. Well, I do know why. I was trying to play around with the fact that we couldn't trust the local certificate. We didn't have rights in our lab image. So one of the tutorials I saw on how to fix that issue suggested commenting this out, but I want to leave that in place. I want to use redirection back to HTTP secure, right? If I change the option right now, I can't run locally, so I have to leave that alone. Remember this option here under properties? Oh, sorry, yeah. Down here in the debug area, enable SSL. Right? If I turn that on, then I can't run locally, and I want to run locally. So I'll leave that for now, but let's just actually execute the program. So my connection strings are actually pointing to my SQL Server with the proper login information. So when I create a record here, it will actually create it in that server in the sky, right? So there we are, right? It's running localhost. Huh. Valid login attempt. So it didn't work the first time. You know what? If it fails, try again. And there, so it worked. I don't think I probably would have just had to stop and start again in order to actually force it to do the migration. I don't think I had to click that button. But we have our doctors, we have our patients, I have my user roles. So it's just all the originally seeded data. But the point is I've seeded this in the SQL Server up in Azure, right? And I'm actually connecting, working with, if I register a new user here, it'll actually store that information in the cloud, right? Okay. So we've avoided the biggest hassle of publishing to Azure is usually getting the database set up and the migrations executed properly. So back to the PowerPoint. Right, so we did this, we did that. Okay, we basically ran update database just by running the program. Okay, note there that, sorry, be careful while working this way if you have put the system into production, right? Anyway, that's obvious. So step 3. Create the web application. So we could do this up in the portal as well and then just publish to it, right? So back in the Azure portal, we'll create a web app with whatever name we want to give it. It doesn't have to be the same as our project name, by the way, right? This is basically going to be the name of the website, .azurewebsites.net, okay, whatever we give it. Okay, and we should probably put it in the same resource group as well. So I'm just going to minimize this. All right, so back in here, okay, I'll just create a new resource again, this time a web app. And because it's going to be URL, it does have to be unique. So I'm going to go medical office 2018. And it checks that that's allowed, right? So that works. Under my Azure for Students, I'm going to use that same resource group. Delete this later so that when I delete that resource group, all these things I'm making in class right now will be deleted. Okay, so it's Windows. By the way, you can use Linux if you want to. We can publish the code, or if you created a Docker container, you can publish that instead, right? Okay, service plan location. We'll use the same, oh, no, we'll make a new plan because I want it, remember I put my database in Central Canada, right? So I want to make a new service plan in Canada Central as well. So that service plan will be MO 2018 service plan. Okay. Oh, I can't have an underscore. Okay. There we go. All right, so at least it's all in the same location. Create. And there we go. So deployment is in progress. While that's happening, instead of listening to Jeopardy, there's something useful we could be doing. before I publish, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try turning that on, by the way. See if that makes a difference when we get up there. No. Before I publish, I need to be logged into Visual Studio with the same account, right? So that's up here, right? Right now it's logged in as Niagara College. I'll just go to Account Settings, go to Sign Out, and then Sign In. So once more, I'll sign in with my college account. So that is the same account that we're using to log into Azure. And there we go. So I'm logged in. I always do this, check for updated license. It just makes sure that the license is updated in Visual Studio, and then click Close. Okay, so now I'm ready. I'll just check Azure. Is it ready yet? Yep. So it's finished. I'll pin that to dashboard as well. So I have the database here. I have the Medical Office 2018 web app. Now it's empty right now. There's nothing actually deployed to it yet. So that, when we bring up my recipe, might as well follow the recipe, right? Okay, so we did step 3, step 4, publish. Back in Visual Studio, make sure you're signed in with the same Microsoft account. Click the active, anyway. Oh yeah, just check the connection strings are pointing to the SQL Server database in the cloud, right? That's what that point is about. And then just right click on the project and select publish, right? But choose an existing web app as opposed to creating a new, because we made an empty web app in Azure, right? This is pretty reliable to do from the client, from Visual Studio, but since we're using the portal anyway, it's guaranteed to work this way. The first time you publish can take a little bit because it's got to upload everything. Subsequent publishing takes very little time. If you just make small changes, it just has to basically send up a little bit of code, right, to reflect the change that you made. And I'll just finish the PowerPoint. By the way, there's a bit of a trap here that if you move your project from one computer to another, the publish file is saved with a password. You don't know the password. You can't get the password. So the solution is just delete the publish file that's in your Visual Studio solution and publish again, right? It'll just recreate it for you. So that's a little gotcha. And that's all there is to that. So get ready, get set, and don't panic. Hey, I took 3 hours to make that PowerPoint slide, so I hope you appreciate it. All right. Okay, so back into here, let's just right click, say publish. Select existing, click publish, and it's looking under my Azure for Students. Okay. Oh, here's my delete this later resource group. Look at that. There's my Medical Office web app. So I just select it, say OK, right? I can start publishing. Continuous delivery is something we can talk about. Automatically publish with continuous delivery means continuously change. Every time you save changes, it publishes right away. I don't usually bother. And there it goes, right? If you try to do it all from within Visual Studio, you will need, sorry, my wife needs $20 tomorrow, by the way. That's this configure down here. You got to go in there and check off all the options under for the database to use the remote database and to do migrations. That's usually what causes you a problem. But again, following the 4-step recipe, let's just go into supervisor. Oh, look at that. I'm not secure, even though I enabled that. Oh, that's easily fixed. Let me go back to the portal. Okay, bring up the web app. Down here, under custom domains, right? HTTPS only, I'll just turn that on. It's updating it. Oh, I guess okay, I don't even need Visual Studio Open anymore because it's actually published, right? But I don't think I have it open in any window anymore, but I can get to it from here, right? If I just there's the link for the website. I can just click it. So here it is. So this is actually up online. Notice it's using HTTPS. Okay. So when I log in now, it's a fully secure connection. And there it is. Okay. Sure, save it. Why not? Oh, no, I don't want to sign in Chrome. Thank you. I got my doctors, my patients, right? We could do, you could all go to the same site with me and we can do concurrency errors and, oh, medicaloffice2018.azurewebsites.net.
Websites?
Yeah. Okay, so if we all edit Fred Flintstone at the same time, I'm going to change the doctor. I'm going to change his expected yearly visits.
What happens if you all log in as different,
Ooh. Are ya? Well, let's find out, eh? I'll click save. Oh, I beat you. I saved first. So the next person that saves should get a concurrency error. Did you get a concurrency error? Oh, okay. All right. Anyway, so I know it works, right? So everything is working concurrency. So there are the user roles. So feel free to register as a new user on the site too, and right.
So when did you choose your domain name?
That was when I created the web app. I had to come up with a name.
How do you choose, like, obviously you don't want Azure websites?
Well, that if you have a domain name, you can use it, right? You can buy a domain name, and I'm not sure, you might even get one free one or something like that. I'm not quite sure. But you know, basically just think of this as a nuisance end to it, and the first part is your domain name, right? It's really, you see a lot of people are using AzureWebsites.net. The advantage of it is it comes with the free certificate for secure connections, right? And if I try to go here without a secure connection, like if I just even open a new browser and try to go without HTTPS, okay, I get redirected, okay? So it won't even let you have a connection to the site without it being a secure connection, right? And that's free, you know, so.
But if you bought your own domain name,
Yeah, then you have to buy your own certificate.
you have to buy your own security certificate?
Yes.
And then have that into your Azure account somehow?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I've never bothered because I just use the free one. Yeah. So they might give you one for free. I don't know, but I think you have to arrange. I think you can get free certificates and you can use them in Azure. But yeah. Right. Yeah, that's nice. But, you know, I don't know the details of comparing, you know, web service providers and so on. But I do know that it's pretty darn fast up here. In fact, I often notice it seems to run faster in Azure than it does in your local PC, which is kind of surprising, right? Especially at just the free tier. Now, if you rank up the resources you're dedicating to it, right, then it can handle even more users and still be just as fast. I don't know if it can ever actually be faster, but it can be just as fast, even with quite a large number of users. But anyway, that gets us up on Azure. So you can do it directly in Visual Studio, but if you follow that 4-step process, it will work every time. And when I want to run my project locally again, right, all I have to do is come into App Settings, right, and switch which connection strings I'm actually using. Just comment out the opposite ones and uncomment the ones you want to use, right? You can go back and forth. Okay, well that's it for my demo.